Hi students, this is Mr. Yao. Today we are going to talk about 7.7, where we will learn how to find the area of shapes in coordinate system. Last lesson, we have learned how to find the perimeter of shapes in coordinate system. We simply find the distance of each or length of each side, then just add them together. However, for area is going to be slightly different. We can't exactly just do what we learned yesterday. Area is going to depend on formulas. So here are a few formulas we are going to use for today's lesson. Triangle, the formula is area equals 1/2 times base times height. Parallelogram, area equals base times height. Rectangle, area equals length times width. And square, area equals side times side. Even though it looks like there are 4 different formulas, actually these formulas are exactly the same formula. Because a rectangle is a special parallelogram, and a square is a special rectangle, which is also a special parallelogram. So basically, we are just doing base times height. Just inside a rectangle, we don't call them base and height, we just call them length and width. And for a square, the length and the width, or the base and the height, happens to be the same. That's why we just use the letter S to represent both. As for a triangle, well, for any 4-sided shape, parallelogram, rectangle, square, they all have 2 triangles. So like, let's say square, there are 2 triangles in there. So of course, to find the area of a triangle, we are just going to use the 4-sided shape divided by 2, or times 1/2. The perimeter of a shape represents the length of the outline or boundary, whereas the area of a shape represents the space the shape covers. To give you a simple real-life example, you're trying to say, let's say you're trying to build a farm. Let's say this is your farm, and you're going to put fences around it for cows. So the fence around is going to be your perimeter, and the grass like inside the farm that's for your cow to eat, that's basically representing the space or the area. Now let's have a look at some examples. Example 1 and 2. So since the formula, they all kind of have base and height, today's lesson is actually mainly about finding or identifying the base and height. Because as soon as you can do that, you can just put the numbers inside the formula. So first, for example 1 and 2, if you have a side given that is on the grid, use it. Because we can simply count that. We don't need to do anything extra. So this is a side that's on the grid, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So the base is going to be 9. Next, height. Height actually represents how tall something is. This is not how tall the triangle is. The height of the triangle is actually from the point directly to the base. And the relationship the height and the base forms is a 90-degree angle, or in other words, perpendicular. So this is where actually the height is. It's not the sides. It has to be directly to the base. And since the base is a horizontal grid, then of course the height is going to be a vertical grid to form a 90-degree angle. And then we can just count 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. My height is 7 in this case. My area is 1/2 times 9 times 7, which is 31.5. Number 2, same idea. First, let's start with the base because I have a side that is already on the grid. So my base is going to be 6. Then we are going to use the other point, drop it straight down to the base to form a 90-degree angle. That is my height. So my base is 6. My height is also 6. Area is 1/2 times 6 times 6, which is 18. That is example 2. Next, example 3. This time, well, I see 2 sides on the grid. Perfect. That makes this a right triangle. If this is my base, then if I drop a straight line down from this point, is going to be this line right here. So my base is 11, my height is 5. That means my area is going to be 1/2 times 5 times 11, which is 27.5. That is example 3. Example 4, we don't have a triangle anymore. We actually have a rectangle. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. One side is a 7. And the other side is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times 8. So the area is 7 times 8. There's no 1/2. This is not a triangle. So it's going to be 56. And here's the thing, if you have these lines on the grid, that will for sure make these angles 90-degree angles. That's why we can directly use the formula, length times width in this case, since it's a rectangle. So that's example 4. Now we're going to change things up a little bit. Let's have a look at example 5 and 6. Here's example 5. We don't have any side on the grid anymore. That means we can't just use the grid to decide if we have a right triangle, if we have a 90-degree or not. So instead, we are going to need to check. These triangles, they do look like they are right triangles. And it looks like these would be the right angles. But we are not 100% sure because they're not labeled. So to make sure that we are actually working with right triangle, because I can simply extend the A to be here and just have it slightly out, you may still feel like it is a right angle, but it's not. It's very close. So we can't be sure. We can't make assumptions. We are going to need to check about the right angle. Right angle, in other words, perpendicular. And that's why we got to check the slopes. So let's first find out the slope for AC. You don't need to use the coordinates because you can simply draw on the graph, do a rise over run. For the A to C, again, finding the slope is left to right, and you got to go vertical first and then horizontal. So from A to C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, down 8. And horizontal, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's -8/4, which is -2. As for BC, that is going to be from C to B actually, up 1, 2. To the right, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's 2 to 4, which is 1/2. Now if you look at these two numbers, -2 and 1/2, clearly they are opposite and reciprocal, which means these two sides are perpendicular. We confirmed this is a right angle, so now we can just use one side as a base, the other side as a height. So we're going to need to find out the length for AC and BC. And in the last lesson, in 2 lessons ago, I've showed you to find the distance or the length. We can simply use the numbers we initially got from the slope. So it's 8 and 4. 8 square plus 4 square. That is going to give you a square root of 80, which put in your calculator is going to give you a decimal as 8.94. As for BC, we're going to use the 2 numbers we got from the slope again. 2 square plus 4 square. That is square root of 20. If you put in your calculator, that's going to be 4.47. Lastly, we just need to find the area, which is 1/2 times AC times BC. Something to be clear, you gotta make sure you use the 2 sides that actually form the right angle. If they're not opposite reciprocal, you can't assume this is going to be a right triangle. So in this case, 1/2 times the 8 times 0.94 or times the 4.47. If you use these rounded decimal, your answer would be slightly off. You should get like something like 19.98. But if you actually use the radicals and you know how to use the radical, that's going to give you a direct answer of 20. Again, I didn't get the 20 from rounding. I got it from using the radical. If you use the radical, that's going to be 20. If you use these 2 numbers, that's going to be 19.98. And I'm accepting both answers. That's example 5. Now let's have a look at example 6. Same idea. So first, whenever you have a triangle or just any shape that is not labeled, you can choose to label them by yourselves. The only thing is, C typically is the right angle. The other 2 points, A and B, it doesn't quite matter which one's which. So let's find out the slope for AC. Slope for AC. That is going to be 1 up, 7 to the right. 1/7. The slope for BC is 7 down, so -7 and 1 to the right, which is 1. So it's -7/1, which is -7. Now these 2 numbers clearly are opposite reciprocals. That works. I can start finding the length. AC is square root of 1 square plus 7 square, which is square root of 50, which is 7.07. BC is also square root of 1 square plus 7 square, because again, this is -7/1. So that is going to give you a square root of 50 or 7.07. Lastly, area is 1/2 times the 7.07. times another 7.07. If you choose to use the decimals, you're going to get an answer that is 24.99. Or you can choose to use the radical. Square root of 50 times square root of 50 is 50. Times 1/2, it is 25. So I would accept both. That is example 6. Next, example 7. 7 is quite simple. Every single side is on the grid, so that's a 2. That's 11. The area is just going to be 2 times 11, which is 22. For number 8 and 9, they are very similar to example 5 and 6. Even though they look like they are rectangles, because these look like they're 90 degrees, we can't be sure. Same thing, I can choose to tilt it a tiny bit, and then it suddenly become a parallelogram. It's not a rectangle anymore. So we gotta check the slopes to be sure first, before we go for the area. So let's label them first, A, B, C, D. Let's find the slope for AB. That is going to be down 3, so -3, over 6, which is -1/2. The slope for BC is up 4 over 2. So that is going to be the slope for BC. That's going to be 4 over 2, which is 2. Now, if you look at these two numbers, that's clearly opposite reciprocals. That works. Now, let's find the length for AB and BC. Use the arranged numbers. 3 squared plus 6 squared. That's square root of 45, 6.71. BC is 4 and 2, so square root of 4 squared plus 2 squared. That is square root of 20, which is 4.47. Now let's calculate the area. 1/2 times 6.71 times 4.47. We use the decimals. That should give you 29. I think it's either 98 or 99. And if you choose to use the radicals, these numbers, that's square root of 900, which will simplify to be 30. Either way works. Next, example 8. Same thing, we are going to need to find the slopes first to confirm. That is down 4 over 4. So the slope for AB is -4 over 4, which is -1. The slope for BC is up 8 over 8. So 8 over 8 is a 1. That means they are opposite reciprocals, even though you can be sure. -1 is -1 over 1, and the 1 is basically 1 over 1. So we are still flipping them, even though it doesn't look like it. Now let's find the length. AB is the square root of 4 squared plus 4 squared, which is the square root of 32, and that is going to be 5.66. BC is the square root of 8 squared plus 8 squared, which is the square root of 128. That is 11.31. Lastly, for this shape, I actually made a mistake. In the previous example, we don't need to multiply by the 1/2. For this one, same thing, we don't need to multiply by the 1/2. These are not triangles. So the area is just going to be 5.66 times 11.31. And if you choose to use the decimals, you should get 64.01. Or if you choose to use the radicals, these two multiply is going to give you 1024. Actually, I take it back. That's going to give you a bit more than that. But anyway, after you finish the square root, that should give you exactly 64. That is example 9. Next, example 10. Let's graph example 10 first. Point A is -4, 5. Point B is 1, 5. Point C is 3, -5. And point D is -2, -5. A to B, B to C, C to D, and D to A. That clearly is not a rectangle or a square. It's actually a parallelogram. So we do have a line on the grid, the base. So the base is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Next, this is very similar to the triangle question we did at the beginning. These two sides are not the height. The height represents directly how far away the other base is to the base DC, which is why the actual height is right here or here. There's so many different lines you can draw to represent the height. But the height is got to be forming 90-degree angle with the base, and it's connecting, basically marking how far away these two bases are. So that is 10. That means the area is 5 times 10, which is 50. Lastly, example 11. A is -2, 2. B is 1, 3. And C is 0, 6. That's my B. 0, 6 is my C. Connect them, A to B, B to C, C to A. It doesn't, if you feel like it's not quite clear which one is the actual right angle, you can choose to check all the slopes. Let's actually do that. The slope for my AB is going to be up 1 over 3. So 1 over 3. The slope for my BC is going to be, C to B is down 3 over 1, so it's -3 over 1, which is -3. And AC, that is up 4 over 2. So it's got to be 4 over 2, which is a 2. Clearly, the 2 has nothing to do with all the other sides. So we're not going to use that. But these two numbers, you can see 1/3 and -3 over 1. That's clearly opposite reciprocals. So these two will form the right angle that we need. Now it's time to find the length of them. AB is square root of 1 squared plus 3 squared, which is square root of 10. BC is same thing, square root of 3 squared plus 1 squared, which is also square root of 10. And afterwards, I just need to use my formula. 1/2 times, let me find out what is square root of 10 in decimals. That is 3.16. So next, 1/2 times the 3.16 times another 3.16. If you choose to use the decimals, your answer is going to be slightly off, and that should give you 4.9928. Or if you actually choose to use the square root of 10, these two multiplied to be a 10 times the 1/2 is going to give you an answer of 5. I would accept both. You can choose to use the radical, or you can choose to use the decimal. Either way works. That is example 11, and that concludes 7.7 lesson. Thank you.